Hey YouTube, I'm Cypher. This is in response to Sage80 and his position on gay marriage, why he doesn't subscribe to that idea, and the very articulate argument that he brings up in the process. And I do mean articulate, it's very well thought out, and I like the way that you address it. And in this response, I have a couple of issues of contention with the way you brought it up and the way you define some things, and I also believe that there's an accuracy element that is not being addressed. First, marriage is just a word. This word we as human beings give definition to, and as free people we are also free to change that definition if enough of us say so. The English language alone is full of words that used to mean one thing, now mean something completely different. The term marriage, as it applies to the state, identifies two people in a specific contractual agreement. From the perspective of the state, marriage has nothing to do with children. Marriage has to do with money and rights being granted to people in the transference of money, and sometimes also in health insurance, visitations, all this other kind of things. But I do agree with you in your idea that life is brilliant and amazing. I absolutely share that with you, I do. But just because you say it, and just because I agree with you, does not mean that we should put special consideration on it. Because slippery slope, once you say life is precious, life is special, life is brilliant, we're all alive. Shouldn't we be putting special consideration on all of it? Not only that, but the definition that you give to marriage excludes something very important in my perspective. Marriage is also a term that we use to express the relationship between each other. That does not necessarily have anything to do with children. There really is no need for a term, marriage, in this perspective of creating children. Children are created out of wedlock all the time. Underage teen pregnancy is a huge indicator of this. And not only is this term marriage used to express how I feel about another person, it also allows me a voice and a language, diction of expression of how I want the world to see me. I am so-and-so's husband, this person is my wife. In the idea of this expression and its relationship to the state, I believe your argument breaks on this specific point alone. The First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or the abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That is the First Amendment. And in the sentence structure, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. If that can cover flag burning, which it does under the law, then it also covers gay marriage. The First Amendment right for a man to look at another man and express themselves both between each other and between themselves and the world around them. The moment you say that gay people can't do that, I believe that thought that if it was ever put into law, would be unconstitutional. And it's such a basic, simple argument. I don't see how you can bring this into play when you start talking about gay marriage and the state. But there is another option, and I'll get to that in a minute. The basis of your argument also seems to have the idea in it that the idea of marriage and its practice in the specific realms of creating children is that the idea of marriage in this context is right because it's historically been this way. That idea I hear in your argument, and that idea is a fallacy unto itself. Just because I do something for 30 years does not mean the thing that I'm doing is accurate. Also, you're putting a purpose onto sex organs. And I'm terming them sex organs because that's kind of the preferred use of these organs that we have. You can say that, but no authoritative source comes along and makes that so. There's an observation between people who are observing and human beings, and we seem to keep having children, and these organs facilitate that, I will agree. But some of these organs, the penis specifically, are not just for creating children. It's only one possible outcome. I could also use my penis to write my name in the snow. I'm pretty sure you would not argue that the existence of a penis exists for men to write their names in the snow. Respecting the historic definition of marriage is a slippery slope by itself. And in the slippery slope, you're saying, again, that it's right because it's been historically this way. The moment you say that, then you have to also address, people have been forced to marry people that they didn't like, didn't love, didn't want, don't want to have children with. Does that make all that right too? Where does the line stop? Now, here is the alternative in your argument that I see that you can use. You could say, if you chose to, that a certain social group wants to claim the term marriage for itself. And the moment that happens, fine. Fine. That group, if they want to claim marriage, I would not have any issue with it. But when it comes to the governance of the state, the moment that social group claims marriage for themselves, the state should say, we will no longer give rights or privileges based on that term and or relationship, because only one social group has it. The idea of the state is to give governance for all of us, not some of us, not most of us, but all of us. Now, at the same time, once the state says no more privileges, no more rights for married people, they could also turn around and say civil unions for everyone. And everyone's relationship in the eyes of the law becomes a civil union. And in those civil unions, all the same rights and privileges apply. That, I believe, would satisfy your perspective for marriage. And then, absolutely, gay people can't get married. And I would be okay with that, as long as under the eyes of the law, those civil unions, because marriage has no rights or privileges attached to it anymore, everybody has civil unions, and either you have civil union in the eyes of the law or you don't. I'm okay with that. Perfectly alright with that. Just my thought. I do appreciate your video, though. I like the articulation.